All right, everyone. I've got an amazing guest here. You might know her on Instagram as PNW Huntress, but Sara Gamache. Is it Gamache or Gamache?
Gamache.
Gamache, Sara Gamache. And she's just has accomplished so many things. We were kind of talking ahead of time how she just finished her degree, her bachelor's degree, but also she's an entrepreneur. She's got a family. She holds down the fort when her husband's away. Like there's so many things going on. I want to share her story so that people out there don't feel alone when you've got a lot going on and you're wanting to get into hunting and fitness and everything else that you enjoy as well. So just give us a rundown, I guess. Who are you, Sara? And what do you do?
Well, thanks for having me on. First off, I appreciate the invite. This is exciting. I think the last time we talked, we ran into each other at one of the TAC events, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
awesome to meet you in person and to now be doing this. Yeah, I'm from Washington State. I'm married to my wonderful husband, Caleb. We have two kids together. We are a hunting family, so all of us hunt. And for business, I own an ultrasound company, and I just started a body sculpting business that I'm going to open in about a month or so. We stay super busy with not just like our hunting adventures, but traveling. We do a lot of international trips, and we're an adventurous family, so it seems like we're always out doing something, whether it's an archery event or a hunt or whatever.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then I mean you guys have you've got your own businesses as well, right?
Yeah, so I just have kind of like with my ultrasound business, I've had that for 8 years, and I've kind of handed that over to two employees that I have managing that for me. And that was so I could free up some of my time to get the body sculpting business up and going. And then as soon as that kind of is, profitable and word of mouth has gone out and I have a good client flow, I'll hire some employees to manage that business, and then I'll start something else.
Yeah.
I never can just be settled, with having two successful businesses. I'll want to start doing something else. So we'll see what the future holds for that.
No, for sure. And I think that's amazing. You know, there's something to be said about people that are just constantly, I mean, you're not just trying to fill your time. You're pursuing passions that you have. You're genuinely wanting to help other people. You saw I guess a gap in the market when, you started your ultrasound business of I guess maybe explain a little bit about that. I know about it from when we had our kids when my wife was pregnant. We didn't go to your clinic necessarily, but that's when I first heard about this kind of ultrasound. I guess explain a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so I got it done when I was pregnant with my kids, and I had never heard of it at the time either. We actually lived in Tennessee. That's where my husband was stationed at the time when I was pregnant with our daughter, my first child. And my friend had just said, hey, go find out the sex of the baby. And I said, well, I don't have my doctor's appointment, for another few weeks. And she said, oh, no, you don't have to have the doctor do it. You can go to one of these private clinics and just pay out of pocket. And so that was the first time I'd heard about it. And I looked into it and just go in. And I think I was like 13 or 14 weeks in the pregnancy and found out that we were having a girl. So I thought the concept was awesome. Couple years, and I would really love to start one of these businesses. And of course, he thought I was crazy because I had never done ultrasound. I had my bachelor's at that point. I got my bachelor's degree when I was 20 in business and marketing. So for me, I was looking at it as a business opportunity. This is an awesome experience. Women love this. It gives them somewhere to be seen outside of the doctor's office, and there's a need in the market in Washington. So when we moved back a few years later, I started up that business. And then now, having owned that business for 8 years, I discovered another need in the market, basically talking to my ultrasound clients about how they don't like their body, how much your body changes, and after the baby's born, how they need to try to get back in shape. And so I was like, well, this body sculpting thing that I've heard of seems like that would be the solution for them. And so I already have this whole clientele that's my target market that I can say, hey, well, once you have your baby, why don't you come see me for some body sculpting? And I had never had body sculpting done before myself. And so I went and got trained and certified to learn how to do that. And it's kind of weird figuring out how to do that service, but never having it done on yourself. So after I got back to Washington, because I did the certification in Texas, I actually started doing it on myself just to see what it was like so I could have some firsthand experience. So yeah, I'm excited about the body sculpting, and I think it's gonna be very beneficial for a lot of my pregnant clients, and then also, you know, the rest of the market out there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, again, that's amazing that I love finding and meeting people that are all about finding a problem and creating a solution for it, not just sitting back and be like, oh, this sucks, and oh well, someone else will figure it out. You took it, you took the reins and you went after it. And I think that's amazing. And you didn't let, a lot of people too, they feel like their families hold them back from what they want to do. And I don't think that's fair pressure to put on kids. It's definitely not fair pressure to put on spouses, but it's something that I'm sure you and your husband definitely had to communicate, because this is a big time consumption, getting businesses started, getting them rolling and keeping them going, not just getting them started. Um, so I think that's really important that, you know, a lot of people can see that you guys have come out on top. And not only that, you've got future plans, and you're progressing in that. And your kids are doing awesome things. Your kids aren't just sitting around the house on iPads, right? They're
Right.
out doing stuff as well. And they've got their own activities and sports and all that they're involved in. So I think that's amazing that you're able to do all of that. And on top of that, you're able to keep in shape. You and your husband are in great physical shape. You're able to go and hike and backpack and do all the things that you need to do to pursue your passions in hunting, or for him, you know, with his career. And it's just something that is, for me, just outstanding to see. So where did fitness, I guess, start for you? I mean, was it years ago? Was it more recent? When did you start getting into, I guess, lifting and fitness?
It was definitely more recently. I had always been like, I always grew up eating very healthy, and I kind of just managed my weight and my figure by making sure that I ate very healthy. And I just naturally had a body that was receptive to that, that if I ate good, I could maintain a good body. But I wouldn't necessarily say I had good muscle tone because I never worked out. And then I met my husband, and he was all about working out. I mean, if anyone listening has seen my husband, you'll see it, know immediately that that is his thing. That's his whole family is actually like that. That's kind of their way of dealing with stress, is going to the gym. And so even though he was really into it, I would say it took almost 10 years of us being together before I jumped on the bandwagon for that. And I just decided that I wanted to, I was getting older, my body was changing. I wasn't necessarily able to manage it just by eating healthy like I was able to do in my 20s. And then also just going on more physically demanding hunts, like a lot of the backcountry elk hunting and hunts for the future that I wanted to do that were going to be more physically demanding. I just knew that I needed to be more prepared for those. So I got into CrossFit. For me, I'm not someone that can just get a membership at a gym, go in there and do free weights and come up with my own workouts. That's more my husband saying that's what he can do. If we had an at-home gym, he would use it every day and he'd love it. I like doing the classes, so I found that CrossFit was perfect for me because I'm in there with other people, which I'm competitive, so I think it forces me to push myself harder. And then I also just need that direction of being told, this is the movement you need to do, this is how many times you need to do it. And then if my form is bad, which most of the time it is, there's someone there that can correct it to make sure I'm not injuring myself.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that is a good thing for whether it be CrossFit. CrossFit puts you through a lot of high intensity movements. And if you've got a good coach, which it sounds like you do, they keep your form in shape, which a lot of people say, oh, CrossFit's going to break my back, blah, blah, blah. If you get a good coach, they're going to make sure that you're not lifting too heavy and that you're keeping your technique and form in line. But also I love the idea of, you know, a lot of people get overwhelmed when you walk into an EOS or a Vasa or a Gold's gym, and you just walk in, you're like, oh man, like there's so much stuff. What do I do? You know? And I personally, when I do see people that are like that, I like to go and talk to them, but you know, I'm weird. I'm that guy that'll go and try and help people out a little bit. But
Yeah.
most people get overwhelmed. They go one time, maybe for a week, and then they leave because they realize this is too much. So I love that you brought that up, because CrossFit gyms are great for that you can have that camaraderie. People will check in with you if you're not showing up for a little bit. They'll text you and be like, hey, where are you at? Are you okay? You know, things like that. So
Yeah.
I think that's really awesome. What you've mentioned why you got into it, but what kept you from it I guess, for those 10 years that you were married to your husband before you started working out?
Having babies, I think I was just so, I had two children, and my life was a lot different when we were living in other states, because I grew up in Washington. I've lived here my entire life. And when I met my husband, I was uprooted from everything I've ever known, from all my friends, my family, everything I'd built in Washington, and moved all the way to the other side of the country to Tennessee. And so that was a huge change for me. And I think that I was trying to adapt to that change. And I had so many other things going on that I just wasn't ready to take something else on. And then even when we moved from Tennessee to North Carolina, so we were only in Tennessee for a couple of years, I got a job, a very time consuming job. And I did do a little bit of working out. Actually, when I was in North Carolina, there was a gym, I think it was the YMCA, and they had, can't remember the name of it, but they were classes. They were not CrossFit classes, but they were workout classes. And I did kind of start my workout journey there. And then when I got to Washington, I think my husband, I think he was on a deployment, and there was a local CrossFit gym that was advertising like a free membership if you, my husband's really into fitness. He's worked out his whole life. I haven't been into it. I think he would love it. If I did, it would be something else that we could share. And he's on a deployment. He's going to be gone for 6 months. I would love to be able to go to the gym, work my ass off, get this nice toned body, and then when he comes home, kind of be like surprised, So I ended up winning that contest, and so I got a free like 3-month membership to that CrossFit gym, and so that's kind of like when it really started.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And again, it's cool to hear that motivation. Now, I'm from North Carolina. I grew up right outside of Fort Bragg.
Okay.
What YMCA was it? And was it in Fayetteville?
It was in Fayetteville. Yeah, I worked at a law firm called Hutchins Law Firm, and
Okay.
there's a couple YMCA's. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to remember what street that law firm was off of. I should know because I worked there for a few years, but I have a bad memory. So it was like one of the smaller gyms, but yeah, right outside of Fayetteville. And we lived in Sanford at the time,
Mm-hmm.
where that is. So we had a little bit of drive. We didn't really want to be right in Fayetteville, but
I don't
that was
blame you.
all a
Yeah, I don't
culture
blame you.
shock for me.
Yeah, Fayetteville's definitely a different place. I don't ever recommend people live there.
Yeah.
It's
Don't associate Fayetteville with like how North Carolina is, because North
mhm.
Carolina is a beautiful state, but yeah, we were able to kind of sightsee and check out, and even go down into South Carolina is beautiful, and
Nice.
Charleston and those types of places.
Yeah, for sure. And I
Wow.
definitely prefer the western half of North Carolina, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
It's so different, and especially going in the fall when the leaves change
Oh
colors.
yeah,
Oh my goodness, there's
gorgeous.
nothing like
Oh
it. There's nothing like
yeah,
it.
we went and visited the Biltmore during the
Mm,
fall, and that whole area over there is just, yeah, the colors are amazing.
yeah, no, for sure. There's so much history over there. It was weird for me moving out west after growing up in North Carolina, and people, like, no one knew about the Civil War and stuff like that. And I grew up going to Civil War reenactments every summer. We'd go and watch them. They lived for like a week, just like the Civil War guys did. I have like pieces of cannonball shells and stuff,
Oh
bullets
wow,
from the Civil War that my grandparents would till up on their land. Like it was just it's
that's
crazy
cool.
history over there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my
But
husband appreciated that too.
yeah, no, that's awesome. So you got into fitness, you had some really good motivators for that, and then now you've kept it disciplined that way. You've because again, and I talk about this a lot, just like most people do. Motivation's great, it gets your butt off the couch, but well, in your case, maybe out of mom life, right? For a
Yeah.
little bit, because you weren't necessarily on the couch, you were just running ragged with the kids.
Yeah.
But got you to a gym, and then what I guess kept you that way? You mentioned hunting, how you noticed it was a little bit more physically demanding, the stuff you guys were doing. Is that kind of a main motivator, that and keeping yourself healthy?
Yeah, that and just setting a good example for my kids. It was really awesome when I got into it, how my kids kind of, decided, hey, maybe this is something we want to do. Like for my husband, it was just always like, that's dad. That's a normal thing for him. That's like breathing air. But then when I started it, it seemed like they took notice to it a little bit more. And it like the CrossFit gym had a kids class. So we started taking our kids to that. And my daughter has like this crazy natural strength that she gets from her dad's side of the family, And so it was pretty cool getting to see what she was capable of in the gym. So that was a huge motivator for me, that like I needed to keep on this. There were plenty of times when I had to that are in it that will stay on me and be like, hey, you weren't at the gym this morning, what's going on? So there's a number of factors, but I do know, like, my husband enjoys it. Like, he likes to see the changes that I'm making. I think he probably notices I'm happier in general. Like, it is a good stress reliever, and that when stuff's getting crazy in life and I haven't gone to the gym, it probably shows.
Mm.
So him appreciating it and giving me encouragement, encouraging words definitely helps with the motivation as well.
No, for sure. Yeah, and it's a big deal. Like you mentioned, that the kids noticed that you started going, even though it was normal for dad, right?
Mhm.
When you started going, the kids kind of picked up on that, and it's really important that I just want to highlight that you guys encouraged that interest. I think a lot of parents would sit back and they're like, "Oh yeah, well we go," and that's that is what it is, and they leave it at that. I love the fact that you keyed in on that they were interested, or at least asking questions. And you're like, "Hey, just let's go take a class,"
Yeah.
and we're here. There's no like, you don't have to go to it for a year or 2 years. Like, let's go and see if you enjoy it. And again, I think that's a big thing for parents, because a lot of parents either want to force their kids into things, or they don't catch those little clues when the kids start asking questions about different whatever it is that they're doing. And that little interest could change things, for the child and their whole direction in life. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, and it went very well hand in hand with the jujitsu, because both of my kids do jujitsu, which is a very physically demanding sport. So adding that to their regimen, we're kind of able to explain like the benefits of staying in shape, and it's going to directly cross over to their jujitsu training. So they realize.
Oh, that's really awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, so I'm looking behind you. Sorry, I think we froze up there for a minute. There we go. Okay.
If I'm just staring at you blankly and you've asked me a question, it's because you're frozen.
No, yeah,
I
you're
don't think
good.
there's
There's been a
internet
couple
service.
moments where it's cut
So,
out, but that is
okay.
what that is what it is. So there and behind you, you've got an interesting animal. I forgot the name of that.
Oh, the sable.
The
Yeah.
sable. Okay. I
Yeah.
always get them mixed up, like ibex, sable.
Yeah.
So you guys have been on some really awesome trips that I've seen. I like that mount. That's actually really interesting. I've never seen one done like that. So is that the cape
So
that's turned
yeah,
into okay.
which I originally seen it done with a zebra. A zebra is
Hmm,
actually a more popular animal to do this with. But yeah, they turned it into the shape of South Africa, or of
that's
Africa,
awesome.
the whole continent. But I got the sable in South Africa. So yeah, it takes up a lot of room on the wall. My husband wasn't actually thrilled about that. And his that is a world record wildebeest that he shot with
Really?
his bow. So we kind of turned the upstairs into our see, there's a kudu over here.
Oh,
This is
there you go.
our Africa room for now.
No, that I think that's cool. I don't think I've ever seen one mounted like that before. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a huge full mount guy.
Mhm.
I look at it, I'm like, I don't want to see the animal staring back at me. But that one actually has my interest. I'm a big Euro guy. I love
Okay.
those ideas. But anyway, that's really cool. So I guess you guys are really big into bow hunting. I don't think I've ever seen you guys with a rifle. Do you
Mm,
guys do both? Do you mix it up a little bit, or is it mainly bow hunting?
yeah, so every year in Idaho, I do a rifle hunt for whitetail. That's just kind of, I've hunted there for about 20 years. It's where my family lives, and I just have always done rifle. And then the only other time I've really done rifle is when I have to, like when I went to Scotland, for instance, a few years ago. They don't let you bow hunt in Scotland. You have to do rifle. So I did shoot my red stag there
Oh,
with a rifle. So we enjoy shooting guns, but especially me personally, if I can do my bow, I will for sure always. My husband actually shot a really good mule deer with a rifle in November in Oregon.
okay. So
So
that was rifle. Okay.
yeah, he had a rifle tag for that. So for him, I think he's not as picky. He doesn't care. But for me, I'd prefer archery always.
No, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So, and that was a beautiful mule deer that I saw. I guess I didn't pick up that it was rifle, but either way, like you guys have been on some amazing hunts. You guys are constantly seeming to find different trips and get outdoors as much as possible, which I think is awesome. But what I guess you said that just tying the fitness into hunting, wanting to tie those two things together, the fitness and hunting. Um, I guess what hunt have you noticed a difference from before when you weren't working out maybe as much till now? Like what's something that maybe has stood out to you, maybe a story you want to share on a hunt?
I would say definitely the place that I elk hunt here in Washington. The spot that I go to is extremely hard to get to, and it's mostly because the hike is like straight up, and not very many people know how to get to this area. There's like it's like rocks like that are I don't know how tall they are, but there's like a trail that goes up between them, and you climb a lot of elevation in a short period of time. And I've been doing that climb since I was a little girl. Like my dad used to take us up there, and then my brother and I started hunting up there when we were in our teenage years. And even when I was young, that hike took a lot out of me. Like it killed me. And my brother would always beat me to the top. And it drove me crazy because I'm so competitive. And then once I started working out and really getting in shape and training, I was able to bomb up that hill, and I was able to beat my brother. And so that was kind of like my feather in my hat. And he was with me one of the times. He's like, dang, he's like, that's impressive. Like, I really see a change in your cardio and your stamina and being able to do this versus when we did it years ago when we were younger. And so that's always amazing to me that even being maybe 10 or 15 years older, that I was actually in better physical fitness and able to get up that quicker than when I was like in my early 20s. And you would think you're supposed to be in better shape then.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's cool that you guys had that experience because and it's interesting, that sibling rivalry still continued on. And I don't think that ever ends, right? If you find something that you
Yeah.
guys compete at. But that's really cool because again, you're seeing over 10, 15 years an increase. And for a lot of people, that might seem like a lot of time. But I'm looking back 10 years ago and I'm like, man, that was like, seems like it was yesterday. And so, starting today for people, and I know, by the time this comes out, it'll be probably after New Year's. So, a lot of people will be getting on the bandwagon of working out and fitness, but I
Yeah.
love to see people start whenever that bug hits, right? Whatever it is that makes you want to go out and do it. Don't just follow the bandwagon necessarily, but stick with it, even on the days that you don't necessarily want to, so that you can have, just like you had that amazing experience where you're able to recognize that maybe your brother's either, at least we'll just say, maintaining his level of fitness and you're superseding that over time. So I think that's a really cool story.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen it like on an elk hunt, even in not in this area where I hunt, but in Colorado. A buddy of mine took me out, and he owns a CrossFit gym. So he is in immaculate shape, and he kicked my ass on this hunt. And there was a couple other guys with us too. I was the only female, and I definitely didn't want to be the one that was like holding the group back. And they're all like in way better shape that I was in. But if I wasn't in the shape I was, there was no way I could have even remotely kept up with these guys. And I felt like I did a dang good job. Like I, didn't force us to have to stop and take breaks and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So I kind of held my own, and that was very rewarding for me. And I did spend quite a bit of time extra training harder leading up to the hat, knowing how physically demanding it was going to be. And then the other thing that I say that was pretty cool that I saw happen was when I did my Cape Buffalo hunt. I was told I had to get up to like 75 to 80 pounds on my bow, and I was currently only shooting 60. So I trained for an entire year extra hard, doing extra workouts, sometimes 2 a day, to be able to slowly work up to that 75-pound, benchmark that I had for my bow for that hunt. So
Wow.
that's something I wouldn't have even been able to actually go out and do if I had not kept up my physical fitness and trained for that
Yeah.
specifically.
No, for sure. And for people that aren't necessarily into archery, which I'm sure most of my audience is, but jumping 15 pounds, jumping 5 pounds for some people is like ripping your shoulder off. But
Mhm.
going, 15 pounds, A lot of people don't even shoot 70-pound bows. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no, you know, measurement, whatever status, but like certain hunts
Yeah.
that you can not even go on without being able to shoot that poundage. That's just going back to being limitless, whether it be in the mountains or on the plains of Africa. I mean, that's, you know, being able to add those 15 pounds and go on this hunt that you wanted to go on. And tell us a little bit about this hunt, because I've seen some clips. We had a little internet issue there with the Cape Buffalo hunt that you got to go on. So we were talking about the fact that you know, you were able to up your poundage, which again speaks to the level of fitness, because you were able to manipulate and strengthen those muscles that are required to be able to pull extra poundage. And like I was saying, going limitless in this case, the plains of Africa, not necessarily you know, you know, the mountains. But so what, I guess, tell us a little bit about this hunt. I've seen some clips. You got charged, you know, there's some
Yeah.
stuff that happened there. So tell us a little bit about that, because that seems pretty. People see Cape Buffalo and like they're cool and they look like cows with
Yeah.
antler or horns, I guess. But
Mhm.
they're a little bit more aggressive than that. So
Yeah.
so walk us
Yeah.
through that.
They're one of the most aggressive animals in Africa and responsible for killing, I think, more people in Africa than any other animal besides, I think, the hippo is the only one besides that. But yeah, it was just a hunt. I don't even know how I came up with the idea of wanting to do it. I'd hunted Africa a couple times, and I think my PH put a bug in my ear that, hey, you should go for Cape Buffalo. And
Oh, I
I
thought you just
obviously,
Googled most dangerous hunt in
yeah,
Africa and like
exactly. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it was my PH that he always, gets these ideas in my head, which I don't know why. Because then after I agreed to do it, then he was so nervous about the hunt because he will not take very many people bow hunting for Cape Buffalo. In fact, not very many guides will.
So
The
sorry,
only
what's a
reason why,
PH just for people that are listening?
professional hunter.
Okay,
So it's a
perfect.
guide. It's like what they call the guides in Africa. So most of them won't even agree to take someone bow hunting. And if they do, 99% of the time, it's going to be from a blind or a tree stand of something where you're not on the ground eye level with these animals because they are known for charging you. And then in the areas that you're hunting them, there's no place to go to really escape. It's not like you can climb a tree. There's no barriers between you and them. And if they're going to come trample you, you're pretty much done for. And then once you wound them, like the recovery is actually probably even more dangerous when they're wounded and really pissed off. So, yeah, so he put the idea in my head on one of my trips there. And I said, well, yeah, give me a year to train for this, get my arrow build, work up to the poundage I need to be. You tell me what your expectations and requirements are of me from this hunt, and, we'll come up with a plan. So I can't even tell you how many conversations over that year talking about how we wanted the hunt to go down. So by the time I got there, I felt like we were very prepared. And yeah, we went out. I was supposed to have a cameraman with me. The cameraman canceled. There was a bunch of crazy stuff going on in Johannesburg at the time. It would have been 2 years ago, where they were having the riots and people were getting killed. And Johannesburg was right where I was flying into. So my cameraman was like, nope, not doing it. I was like, I'm still going. I'll go by myself. So I flew to Africa by myself. So when we went out for the hunt, how it's supposed to work is there's supposed to be two PHs, each carrying a rifle, and then me with my bow. And then there's like two trackers that come along for once we hit the animal for blood tracking.
So
And
I just want
because,
to pause you there. Like it sounds protective having the two rifles there, but anyone that has either has gone hunting at all with a rifle can understand that if a deer can get hit with one or two solidly placed shots and still run off, what is a Cape Buffalo going to do with two, maybe three, maybe if you're lucky, you get 3 or 4 shots off before it
yeah,
gets to you. Like just the
yeah,
thought of that, just it's cool that they had their rifles, but even then it's like you're not getting
right.
away.
Yeah, well, when people say that, like I've had negative comments, oh, well, how scary was it when you have two people with rifles? Well, for one, I don't know about other people, but I don't like depending on others to save my life. Like I just don't. So I'm trusting these two men that, and yeah, it's one thing when it's a deer in front of you, but when you have a Cape Buffalo charging at you, like, are they going to be able to react in time? Like, I mean, I knew that my PH was experienced with this. He had been charged by buffalo several times, but like in the heat of the moment when your adrenaline's going and they're trying to save their own lives and save my life. And not only that, but a lot of people get killed during animal attacks when the person tries to shoot the animal attacking and accidentally shoots the person, shoots their buddy. Like that's happened a lot, especially in bear attacks. It wasn't even the bear that killed the person. It was their buddy accidentally shooting them. So it's not as, I didn't feel as safe as you might think I would have having
and just for perspective for people that are listening here, you can go Google it, but bulls can get up to 2,000 pounds.
They're
like
huge.
That's twice the size of an elk.
Yeah, and I watched plenty of videos where they were shot multiple times head on and it didn't even phase them. It was like shooting them with a BB gun. It's just amazing. I shouldn't have even watched the videos before I went, but I did. So, well, to make matters worse, so you're supposed to have 2 PHs with guns, but because my cameraman didn't show up, I asked one of the PHs to forfeit his gun and to take a camera. So now we're down to 1 PH because it was so important to me that I wanted it filmed. And so the plan is that 1 PH would have the gun, 1 would have the camera, and then one of the skinners who had never gone out on, like a young kid who had never gone out on one of these hunts, was going to carry the rifle. And so when the buffalo was going to charge us, the PH with the camera was going to drop the camera, turn and grab the rifle from the skinner, so that then we had the 2 rifles, back in play. So they explained this to the skinner. Hey, you have to stay up close to us. When this thing charges us, which it will, it's guaranteed it's going to happen. You cannot run. You need to hand me this gun and make sure this all goes smoothly. Well, of course, the first time this thing charges us, it's full chaos. And I think it was at like 40 yards when it decided it was going to come at us. And so the PH drops the camera. He goes and turns to grab the gun from the kid, and the kid is running the other direction. And he hits the ground. He's in fetal position, holding the gun like this in a bush, and he's like pretty much crying. And I was like, okay, good. I'm going to die. This is not.
You're calling your husband like, hey, if I don't come back, at least we'll have a nice, buffalo mount. Like,
yeah. And the whole time, my PH was just like, are you sure you don't want to do this from a blind? Are you sure? And I was like, no, this is the only way we're doing it. Like, we were doing spot and stock, doing on foot. Like, I've decided. So I think he hoped that would scare me enough that I'd change my mind. But I was like, we're already here. We have the buffalo. We're just going to keep going. So he did mock charge us like 3 times. And so I do have the mock charges, like the first couple seconds of it. But the reason why we don't have the full video is because the cameraman is having to drop the camera and grab the rifle. So that's the story.
I don't blame him.
Yeah. So the other problem is, you talk about them being such a big animal, and my PH is telling me you need to be within 25 yards or closer to make a good ethical shot for penetration reasons, because their skin is like so thick. Well, for one, they're covered in mud. So they have dried mud, and then the skin, and then the ribs, and you have to get through the ribs. So he didn't want me being any further than 25 yards. So when we're stalking this thing and it's so huge, he's, ranging for me, and I'm saying, okay, like, we're at 25 yards. And he's like, no, we're at 40 yards. Like, how are we at 40 yards? Like, we still have to close like 15 to 20 more yards. There's no way. And so it's so misleading.
And they can close that distance probably in 2 or 3 steps. I mean, like,
they can. Yeah. So it was crazy. And then this bull was smart. And when he would finally decide to stop and face it, like turn to us, he would always be straight on. He would never give us a broadside shot, probably straight on, because he's going to charge us. It's natural position for them to be in before they charge. And so finally, like towards the end of the hunt, my PH was like, you might just have to take a frontal, which I've never taken a frontal on an animal. I've never really wanted to. And so now thinking how hard it's going to be to take down a Cape buffalo, and I've had this plan in my head how it's going to go down, and we've just thrown that all out the door, and now I have to take a frontal. And so in the clip that's on my page, probably the one that you've seen, he actually he's like quartered, I think he's like quartered 2, or he's almost wanting to be front to us. And then he goes broadside for just a second, and everyone's like, okay, go now. Like, now's your time. This is the only time during the whole hunt he's gone broadside. So I knew I had to get it done. There's no room for error. There's no letting your nerves and adrenaline get to you. Like, you have to get the job done. And after being mock charged 3 times, you can imagine how fast my heart's beating. And my PH had literally just told me after the 3rd time, he said, I've done this enough with rifle hunters that this thing is coming all the way for us. Like, they give their warnings, but he's so pissed off at this point. Like, you have to get this done, else we could die. So no pressure. And now he's broadside. So
I bet
luckily,
Joel Turner's loving, if he listens to this one,
oh
he's
yeah,
gonna love hearing the go now.
trained well enough, his guidance and how much time I've spent with him to know to do my shot process. So I actually did go through my shot process with that animal, which is the first thing he asks me. I could send him a picture of any animal on this planet, and people would be like, that's awesome. You want to know what Joel? First question asked every time.
Did you
you
know
go
how
through your
that shot was
process?
gonna go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember that shot your process? So
Yep.
yeah, I knew that that was going to be important, especially with that hunt specifically. So it all came together. I did it with 1 arrow, and I mean, my goals were I did not want to have it put down with a rifle. I wanted to do it spot and stock on foot with my bow, and it all came together. So I was extremely happy about that. So
Man, that's crazy.
now that I've done that, I just booked a trip for Argentina to do water buffalo in April with my bow. So that's my next. I don't think they're as aggressive, but it'll be a fun hunt.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. I haven't even, like, those kind of hunts don't even cross my mind. I'm more like red stag in New Zealand, or I was really thinking Scotland until you just mentioned
Yes.
that you have to hunt with a rifle, which still sounds cool, but I was thinking bow hunting. So I might have to go to Spain instead, and check out the red stags there. And I love the idea of Spain, the culture behind it. I lived in Mexico for 2 years, so I would love to go see Spain, and just that culture intrigues me a lot. But man, that's intense. I guess let's touch on what happens after, you kill the animal, and then you're harvesting the meat and the head and everything. I'm sure you didn't ship all of that meat home. What happens with the meat, just for people that maybe are interested in these hunts, or even people that maybe don't hunt and are just thinking that you're just going around the world killing all these awesome animals? Like, yeah, exactly. So what happens with that meat?
So it's really unfortunate because it's actually our own government that has outlawed bringing meat from Africa into the States. So it is never by the hunter's choice that we decide to leave the meat behind. It is because of the rules of the government. And it's not like that with every country. I'm getting ready to do a New Zealand red stag hunt in March, and they actually let you bring the meat back in. So I'm bringing the meat home from that hunt, but Africa, they do not allow it. So what happens to that meat is they will butcher it up, and the outfitter will either sell it. They kind of leave, you kind of have to work with outfitter and see what's going to work best. They either sell that meat on the meat market, or you can choose to have it donated. And so I've done both scenarios where there's places that we could easily take the meat to have it donated. Some of it goes to the workers. Some of the workers that help in these outfits are a little bit more come from destitute situations. So the meat goes home with them, but it definitely does not go to waste. Like, there is not a circumstance where you're shooting an animal, cutting the head off, and the body is out there rotting. That, I mean, I have pictures of us bringing it back, of it being butchered. We always eat as much meat as we can while we're there. So all the meals that are prepared are from the animals that we've killed. So I did get to eat some of my buffalo, which it was awesome, but kind of sucked because I got to see how good it tastes, and then know that I could have taken any of it home with me. But just knowing that it is going to good use, like, that's partly what I do hunt for, is for meat. And so if I can't personally eat the meat, I need to know that it's going somewhere to someone that is going to eat it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is, a lot of people, I'm not, I guess, a trophy hunter, as people might call it, when you go out and hunt lions and giraffes and all that. That's not necessarily for me, but I've looked into it enough to understand that they gets donated. And it also helps with the tribes as they're planting, or whatever their farm life is out there, or even their livestock, if you're going out there going after lions or whatever other predatory animals. It's just like here, where for them, that's their livelihood, that's their livestock. I mean, that's literally their livestock. So they, being able to help out with the lion population out there as well. Some people that go out there and hunt lions, they either donate the meat, or they're helping those tribes be able to survive a little bit better. So I think that's awesome. And it does suck that you got to try it and not bring it home. So it was really good. Or what would you compare it to? I guess some game meat that you've had around here in the US. What would you compare the game meat from or from the Cape Buffalo to here in the US? Is it more like bison, elk, moose, cow?
It's kind of a combination between bison and elk, I'd say.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
nice.
a pretty mild meat in regards to it's not like gamey, like some people use the
Mhm.
term gamey. They think I wouldn't say that it had much of a gamey taste to it, but it was very rich in flavor, like a very rich meat.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then and what I mean, just for the arrow junkies out there, what was the weight of your arrow and kind of your setup that you ended up dialing it into?
I think the final weight was close to 750 grains. It was a serious brand arrow and a tough
Wow.
head broadhead. And if I remember right, I think the broadhead was 300 grains.
Okay.
So yeah, and it was actually Troy Fowler that helped me with the setup with that, and he works with the Ashby Foundation,
Yeah.
and I think Ashby, like even had some input on the build of it, and so I had him build the arrows earlier in the year, and then I actually met him in Texas. My daughter was there for a girls' Texas hunting camp, and it
Hmm.
was on a ranch, and so I asked the ranch if I could come along and do a hunt because I wanted to test the arrows, and
Hmm.
so I was going to shoot an oryx when I was there. And so Troy came, and unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity on oryx. So that was kind of a bummer. So I didn't get to put the arrows to use like I had wanted to. So I was kind of really trusting him. He has a lot of experience in that, and a
Hmm.
lot of other people that had used that exact basically arrow setup that was successful. So I kind of had to put my faith in that, and it worked. It was the perfect setup.
That's
So
awesome. Was it a single bevel, double bevel? Do you know?
it was
Okay.
single
Awesome.
blade. Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounded like a Troy arrow, a ranch fairy arrow for people that
Right.
don't know Troy's actual name. Uh, but yeah, so that's awesome that he was able to help you out with that. Um, and that man, that's such an interesting experience. I can't imagine like a 2,000 pound animal. I'm going to be helping my buddy with a bison hunt in January, and down here in the Henry Mountains here in Utah. And I mean, those bison get probably, I think, 2,000 pounds. They're probably about the same size as the Cape Buffalo. Um,
Yeah.
but it'll be interesting to be that close to animals, because I know even at Yellowstone, when you go through Yellowstone and you're able to get kind of close to them, you're still kind of like, yeah, I know you can go 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds, so we're not
Yeah.
I'm not getting any closer.
That'll be a
25
fun one.
yards.
Yeah.
25 yards. That's insane. That's insane. Well, cool. So you've got some other things coming up, as far as hunts planned and everything like that. But during the holidays, do you turn back into kind of a normal human being when you've got family, and you just kind of kick back and you're able to relax a little bit and spend time with family?
Yeah, I definitely try. I mean, right now I still have a late deer season, and I would I had been taking my daughter out for that because she had a deer tag, and I think I'm probably done deer hunting now, though. I'm not really feeling it now that we have family coming and we're
Hmm.
kind of getting into the holiday gear of things. I think my next big venture is I'm going to the Julian Ranch in January. They have a women's hunting camp, and I'm going to be an instructor at that, talking about solo hunting and how to. I have a lot of people that reach out to me, specifically women that want to get more into hunting, but they're currently like dependent on their husband or a male partner, and they
Hmm.
want to become more independent, and they are even looking into wanting to do solo hunting. So this is kind of going to be a class that's like an introduction to how to get started into doing that. So I'm very excited about that. And I think there's a 3D archery shoot at the end of the weekend. And then I think I kind of have the month of February off for now. And then March, I'm going to go to the New Zealand hunt. April's Argentina. End of May is going to be Hawaii. I'm doing another Africa trip. So
Man.
I like to stay busy. In fact, I do this every year. I just jam pack my schedule. And then in the middle of all of it, I look at my husband and I'm like, why did I do this? And he's like, well, here's the thing. Next year, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't overbook. And then every year, like
Yep.
by January, the whole year is booked. And he's like, why are you doing this? And I was like, I don't know. It's just how I am. I enjoy the lifestyle, but yeah, it's definitely a balancing act, trying to balance the time with the family.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier now that my kids are getting older. Like when, for instance, when we go to Hawaii, they're coming with us. My husband's going to go out and hunt while I stay and do stuff with the kids, take them to the beach, go snorkeling, do all the fun stuff. And then he'll come and we'll switch and then I'll go hunt. So we really try to find ways to bring our kids with us on as much of these things as possible. We've tried taking them to Africa, but they don't want to do the plane ride. They say it's too long of a ride. So I was like, only you, the most spoiled, rotten children, would say, no, I don't want to go to Africa. Because sure, when they get older, they will be more willing to do that. So yeah, I mean, just like you said, I have my business and
Yeah. So I mean, this is something that again impresses me about you and your husband. I call them power couples. You guys both have these dreams and goals, and you don't just sit back and leave them at that. You guys have literally shaped your lives and your careers being able to do all of these things. And that is a lot of traveling. I don't know if I'd necessarily be up for it, but being able to go out and do all these different hunts and travel the world and then bring your kids along with you. You guys have really chosen this. I mean, this is something that you've built over the years. This wasn't something that happened overnight. You saw again a gap in the market with the ultrasound clinics, and now you've started another business and you're setting it up so that you can trust these people to manage those clinics and you can go off and pursue what you're doing. So you're still providing the service that you wanted to provide, and yet you're providing that time so that you can be the mom you want to be, the wife you want to be, but also the hunter that you want to be, or the huntress that you want to be. And I kind of wanted to talk about that as well. I know hunting in general on social media, there's some things that get portrayed in a bad light, and there's other things that get portrayed in almost like they don't want to mention the nitty gritty of hunting. You've got the people with pictures that are holding up, the heart, and anyway, there's some really bad pictures that people take that put hunting in a bad light. And I know you've mentioned it before on other podcasts about how you came up with the PNW Huntress, but kind of walk us through that. I know you got started pretty much before social media was even a big thing. So
yeah.
walk us through maybe that journey a little bit.
Well, my dad started hunting with me when I was a little girl. And so I've been doing it, since like age 11, I think is when I went through hunter safety. And I just knew immediately that was going to be my lifestyle. I didn't, in the beginning, when I was young, necessarily do it because I really wanted to kill an animal. I don't think at 11 years old, that's your mentality. But I did it to spend time with my dad, and I enjoyed being in the woods. And I had other siblings, and he was divorced from my mom. So I had limited time with him. And that was just like so special. Those hunting trips that I had, and I knew that he enjoyed it, and it was going to be memories that would last a lifetime. And it wasn't really until I think I was 19 when I started solo hunting and really started taking it serious. My brother was much more into hunting at an early age and more serious about it than I was. And I kind of just half-assed was doing it between like 11 and 19. And like I said, just kind of going out with my dad. And my brother, even though he was younger than me, he was more ambitious and more into it and more successful. And I just started looking at him and how he was doing it. And I was like, well, he's just much more committed. And if I want to make this a lifestyle and be successful, I need to be more committed in how much time I'm spending out there. So I started solo hunting, and I shot my first deer on a solo hunt when I was 19, a blacktail here in Washington. And it was just kind of at that moment that I knew, yep, this is what I'm going to continue to do. I immediately got that confidence that I could be independent with it, and that if my dad couldn't take me out, or it wasn't going out with my brother, I could do it on my own. And I kind of just coined this nickname of the Huntress, like in my small town, because there weren't very many other women doing that. and it kind of just stuck. And you probably, if you listen to the Elk Shape podcast I just did, I talked about that was like my MySpace name was Huntress, and I had a license plate that said Huntress, and
Wait,
that was just
MySpace? What's MySpace?
yeah,
Okay.
right. Like our
I'm
kids
just
aren't even
kidding.
gonna
I remember that.
know what that is. Yeah, so old school. So yeah, that was just kind of what it always was for me, and there was no negative connotation to it at all. In fact, it was kind of like an empowering term. This woman that goes out and can do this on her own, and doesn't need the help of a man with her to do this. And then it kind of changed and evolved over time with social media, becoming more popular, and different platforms popping up like Facebook and Instagram. And then now you have some girls on there that have decided, oh, you can get a lot of attention by being a female hunter. And maybe it wasn't something that they grew up doing or even are that passionate about, but they just see the side of the attention of it. And so then they're posting some of the pictures, like maybe what you're referring to, that aren't the best of taste, not
Mhm.
very tasteful. And you can kind of see that they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And so they started calling themselves huntresses. And so now that has a negative connotation in the hunting industry, and it's kind of unfortunate. And I've said before, I kind of debate if that's how I want to continue to brand myself. But everyone I talk to says I just need to stick with it and keep my authenticity, and people that follow me know that that's who I really am, and those are my roots, and might not be the same as some of the other women out there doing it for the wrong reasons.
No, for sure. I definitely agree with that aspect of it. The fact that, and I love that you brought up, that's what I think of when I think of a huntress or a hunter is, the love of the pursuit of the animal, because that's why it's not just called killing or slaughtering or whatever you want to call it. Like we hunting, I don't know how many days I've spent in the mountains, and I only notched one tag, but I got to help so many other people, and the thrill of being part of the hunt, walking people in on animals, being the spotter, etc. Like all of that is something that I'm super passionate about. And even so much so after this year that I've discovered that's something that I really enjoy. Yes, I would love to tag out on my own animal, but being able to help other people as well is something that's huge, and that pursuit of it. And so the fact that you brought that up, that it's a strong woman that doesn't need a man. I'm sure, actually, I don't know. I've heard really bad stories about men and women hunting together with their spouses. We can get into
Yeah.
that later. But as far as like being a strong woman that enjoys the pursuit of the hunt, you enjoy being outside, and the fact that you're wanting to help other women as well, find that passion, and you're going out and you're helping with these camps that are women only camps, which I think there's more coming up, but
Mm-hmm.
it needs to continue to grow. And if
100%.
anything, for women to also understand why their husbands want to do it so much. I mean, that's another big thing
Right.
too, because sometimes some women are going to want to go to these camps, and they're going to realize, I don't like doing this. Just like some men go on a hunt and they're like, I don't like the skinning and all the other stuff that goes with hunting. Like, it's not what I thought it was, but
Mm-hmm.
you'll at least gain that appreciation for
Right.
what it is. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's amazing that you get to go out and do that, and that you're willing to share your passion with others. So I would agree with all the other people that have told you don't change that name. I think, it'll ebb and flow just like social media does. And you're showing that you've been there since MySpace, which, people can look up what MySpace is and your top 5 songs and everything on
Yeah.
there. And you've been doing it since before social media. So I definitely would not change that, and just keep your message of strong women, the enjoy the pursuit of the hunt and being outdoors. Like that's amazing. Um,
Thank you.
I don't, do you have any other, I guess, anything else that we haven't touched on? We've talked about some amazing things. You live an awesome life. Like, you've laid it out. You and your
Yeah.
husband have genuinely, like, this wasn't something that just laid in your lap. You guys planned this whole thing out. You guys have taken years and years. You guys are prepping for his retirement, and he's retiring into a passion, not
Yeah.
just something that he's going to sit back and be like, oh man, I'm aching from my years in the military, because he's done some amazing things as well. You guys are going to continue to just improve. So I love seeing that, and the goals that you guys have. But is there anything else that we haven't touched on that maybe you want to share with the audience or the listeners?
I guess just like on that note of what you just said, I get a lot of messages of people that say, "Oh, I wish I could have your life. You have such a great life." And I always respond, you can have that life we built up to this lifestyle. It was a long journey. I just didn't, like I said, start at 11 years old and traveling to Africa and going on all these hunts. Like, it has definitely evolved over time. And there were years, plenty of years, where I didn't even get to go hunting. Like when we were moving state from state, or my husband was deployed, or I was pregnant, or whatever. Like, there's things that life throws at you, and maybe you miss a season. So I haven't just always had this spectacular life that you see on social media. And like with everything, social media is like the highlights of my life. So there's negatives too. Like, there are plenty of days when I come home and I'm like, what am I doing? Or like when I told you, I say to my husband, like, oh my gosh, like, I need a break. And so it happens. I think, like, especially if you're married or have a partner, like, communication is key. Understanding like what that person's goals are, explaining to them what your goals are, coming up with a game plan on how you guys can both meet those goals. Like, my husband, he actually hates traveling because he travels internationally for the Army so much that travel to him has always meant work and going to third world countries and living pretty miserable situations. So when he got home from his deployment, then here I am, hey, let's go to Africa, let's go to Scotland. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be at home with my kids. And I'm like, well, I was just with the kids for 6 months, so I want to go do this stuff. So having to communicate, like, him, luckily he's an extremely supportive husband, and understanding that this is my passion, would say, well, I don't necessarily want to go, but hey, I have no problem if you want to go. Like, if you feel comfortable going to Africa and doing that hunt, go for it, babe. Like, I'd love you to go do that. And so that's why some of the stuff I do is on my own. So it just comes down to good communication, having a good support system, and then just easing into it, writing down your goals on paper. And maybe they're like 6 months goals, or maybe you're just making your goals for the year. We also have a great financial planner. You probably know Jeff Bynum. I met him at Elk Shape Camp. He's really been able to sit down with us over the last year and figure out our finances and what we can afford as far as going on these types of hunts. So there's a lot of different resources. I'm an open book, an open door. If you want to reach out to me through my social media and have questions, I do a lot of group hunts throughout the year. So my New Zealand hunt is actually a group hunt. I think there's 9 people going. You probably actually know a lot of them that are coming, people that are big into archery, that I go on these group hunts. So I find outfitters and I say, hey, how big of a group do I need to bring you for us to have a discount? And I want a good discount. I want like a 20 to 40% discount for all these people. And they'll say, well, since it's going to be in bulk and everyone's coming, you guys can get 20 to 30% off. So I actually have found ways to make like bucket list hunts affordable for people that maybe wouldn't have been able to afford it just going on their own. And then because I have the experience in traveling internationally, able to help them through that process. It's pretty intimidating if you haven't flown out of the country and now you have a trip booked to Africa. Oh my God, I get all these questions. So I'm kind of there as their resource and their hand to hold along the way. And then it's also usually outfitters that I've hunted with. So I've vetted them. I know that they're good. Can also be daunting picking out an outfitter and trusting that you're going to have a good experience. So
you're not going to run away from your Cape Buffalo charging you.
Yeah, I've tried to find ways to be able to help people have the lifestyle that I have, because I know a lot of people like that. That's what they want. And so, yeah, just reach out to me. Anyone that's listening, if you have questions about what my husband and I do, we're willing to help.
Cool. Yeah, I'll leave her MySpace handle down below, guys, so you can know.
Right, MySpace. Yeah.
No, but yeah, we'll leave all the links down below for you guys to go check out. Sara is just doing amazing things. Again, guys, what I think is so key is that communication and also understanding each other's goals. I would almost bet money that 10 years ago, you weren't thinking this, like you couldn't necessarily picture this 10 years ago, but you pictured the 5 next steps to get to this point. And then, 3 years later, you pictured another 5 steps and like you built on it. Right. And I think that's something that may be daunting for people as well, is thinking 10 years ahead. That can be hard. And your goals are going to change as you go, because there's going to be life experiences and things that happen, especially being a military family. I understand that 100%. There's things that get thrown at you last minute that you weren't expecting. But either way, guys, I'll leave Sarah's information down below for you guys to check her out and send her any questions that you've got. Again, thank you so much for coming on and
Yeah.
sharing. I really appreciate your time. I know you've obviously made it very clear you've got a lot of stuff on your plate, and so for you to take the time to come chat with me on the podcast, I really appreciate it. I think that's it. Yeah. So
Yeah, I enjoyed
with
it.
that,
Thank you so much.
yeah, of course. And with that being said, guys, like I always say, get out, live your life, and love it.